The mysterious death of Natalie Wood. In November of 1981, actress Natalie Wood was on a yacht in California off the coast of Catalina Island with her husband, actor Robert Wagner, her friend, actor Christopher Walken, and the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern, when she mysteriously disappeared in the middle of the night. Wood's body was found a mile away the next morning, and her death was ruled an accidental drowning, despite a litany of suspicious facts and contradictory accounts from her three companions. The case is so puzzling and bizarre that it was recently reopened in 2018. See if you can figure out what happened that night almost 40 years ago. The LA County coroner ruled Natalie Wood's death an accidental drowning in 1981, explaining the cuts and bruises on her face, wrist, knees, and ankles as a result of attempts to climb back aboard the yacht after falling in the water. However, when the case was reopened in 2011, the medical examiner determined that Woods' bruises were inflicted before she fell overboard. The new report could not conclude whether or not Woods' injuries were accidental, but determined that the location and amount of her bruising couldn't have resulted from her fall. Her cause of death was changed from accidental drowning to undetermined. Natalie Wood's husband, Robert Wagner, was initially cleared of any suspicion, but LA County investigators finally named him a person of interest in 2018, nearly 40 years after Wood's death. Later that same year, Dennis Davern, the captain of the Splendour, appeared on a Dr. Phil show and claimed he heard Wagner and Wood fighting just before she disappeared, insisting you could hear things being thrown around the stateroom. Davern then stated that he fully believes Wagner murdered Wood, attacking her and throwing her overboard in a fit of rage. The theory accepted by investigators in 1981 was that Wood slipped as she was sitting alone in a dinghy and attempting to tie it to the yacht. But Wood had a well-documented phobia of water that is dark and of being helpless in it, and Wood's sister Lana insisted that Natalie would never go near that dinghy. Wood's phobia was so severe that it came up several times during her career. While filming Splendor in the Grass, she asked if a scene in a reservoir could be moved to a small tank inside a studio, even though the reservoir was shallow enough to stand in. While filming The Star as a young teenager, Wood was required to jump over the railing of a yacht for a particular scene, but panicked as soon as she hit the water. When the scene was filmed again with a stunt double, the double got tangled in kelp and nearly drowned. In a chilling coincidence, that scene was filmed on a yacht off the coast of Catalina Island, where Wood would ultimately drown decades later. Wood disappeared around 11 p.m., but the coroner ruled her time of death to be approximately midnight. That gap alone is suspicious, but it's only the beginning of the mysterious timetable of events surrounding her death. A ship-to-shore call from the Splendor wasn't placed until 1:30 a.m., which means that nobody aboard attempted to contact authorities for over 3 hours after Wood disappeared, and the Coast Guard wasn't contacted until 3:30 a.m., nearly 5 hours after she vanished. Captain Davern claims Robert Wagner was the cause of the inexplicable delays, as he was unconcerned with his wife's whereabouts. Whether Wagner believed Wood had simply taken the dinghy out to cool off after their argument or was unconcerned for a more sinister reason, no one can say. Wood, Wagner, Christopher Walken, and Captain Davern spent the night of Wood's death downing bottles of champagne at a restaurant. They were so intoxicated when they left that the restaurant manager notified the harbor patrol to ensure the four made it back to their yacht safely. Wood's toxicology report revealed her blood alcohol content at 0.14%, which means she was likely blackout drunk at the time of her death. She had also taken painkillers, which, combined with the alcohol, would have made her extremely impaired. A woman on a boat anchored nearby claims she heard Wood's panicked cries for help at around midnight, followed by a man's slurred voice saying, "Oh, hold on, we're coming to get you." The woman says she called Harbor Patrol but got no answer. She then called the sheriff, who told her a search helicopter would be sent, but no helicopter ever arrived. 3 days later, the witness says she received a threatening note warning her, "If you value your life, keep quiet about what you know." Captain Davern told investigators he heard Wagner and Christopher Walken having a loud argument, punctuated by the smashing of a thrown wine bottle just before Wood fell overboard. Davern claims the nature of the argument was Walken's relationship with Wood. In a memoir written decades later, Wagner confirms that he and Walken were having a heated argument over Wood that nearly got physical, but insists that the argument was about career advice Walken had been giving her. Wagner says that Wood left to go to bed and that he and Walken stepped outside to trade blows, but that they ultimately calmed down before a fight broke out. After initially telling investigators that he didn't see anything, Captain Davern now insists that he witnessed Wagner push Wood overboard. Years earlier, Wood's sister Lana claimed that Davern drunkenly called her one night and confessed to what he saw, which seems to corroborate his account. According to Lana, Davern told her that Wagner threw Wood into the ocean and refused to allow the captain to rescue her, saying, "Leave her there, teach her a lesson." Wood and Walken co-starred in the movie Brainstorm and had become close friends. The rumors that they were having an affair became so pervasive that Wagner left the set of his TV series to visit Wood during Brainstorm's filming. Captain Davern claims that Wood was openly flirtatious with Walken at the restaurant the night she drowned, saying they were giggling and touching. She was excited by Christopher. Wood's sister Lana agrees that Natalie had a thing for Walken, but doesn't believe the two ever had an affair. Wood's body was found a mile away from the yacht, wearing a nightgown, wool socks, and a heavy jacket. Not at all what a person attempting to go out on a dinghy in the middle of the night would be wearing. Her clothes had taken on so much water that they were still wet during an examination of her body 24 hours later. The jacket, in particular, was so saturated it weighed between 30 and 40 pounds, effectively a dead weight on her back that would have easily thwarted any attempt to climb back into the boat. In his initial statement to police, Captain Davern said that the four of them returned to the yacht from the restaurant and continued drinking heavily, and Wood and Walken grew increasingly flirtatious until Wagner exploded with rage and smashed a bottle of wine on the table. According to Davern's statement, Wood and Walken went to their separate rooms, and Wagner eventually followed his wife to talk to her, at which point the captain claims he heard them having a loud, violent argument. He heard the couple's fight move out of their room and then heard the sound of a dinghy being untied. Davern said that Wagner returned looking sweaty and disheveled, and the two men continued to drink until about 1:30 a.m. when Wagner left to check on Wood and discovered she was missing. After making his statement to the police, Christopher Walken kept completely silent about Wood's death for 2 years. He finally commented in an effort to put an end to public speculation by saying it was an accident. However, Walken told the police that Wood's death was a direct result of a long, drunken argument with Wagner, which seems to corroborate Captain Davern's later account. When asked in 2011 how he felt about the case being reopened, Walken said, "I don't know." Walken, Davern, and Wagner are the only three people who know what happened the night Natalie Wood drowned, but they gave three different versions of events to police. The original investigator, Dwayne Razier, originally concluded that it was accidental, but admits that he can't explain how that accident occurred. Razier doesn't believe Wagner had anything to do with Wood's death and dismisses Captain Davern as a person trying to make money off of his connection to a famous case. Davern admittedly lied to the police, wrote a book about the incident, and has sold his story to several news outlets, changing his version of events several times. However, if her death was accidental, that means she was voluntarily trying to climb overboard, which seems highly unlikely given her severe phobia of water. Despite the case being reopened, investigators are no closer to a satisfying explanation. The death of Natalie Wood is one of the most infamous and enduring Hollywood mysteries, full of contradictory facts and inexplicable gaps of lost time. And the further it drifts into the past, the less likely it seems that it will ever be solved. Check back next time for more unusual stories from our weird history.